Hello and welcome. On this video, I'm going to be performing a migration using the BitTitan Migration Wiz product. We are going to be taking a Google Shared Drive and we're going to be migrating that into SharePoint Online inside Microsoft 365. So before I start jumping into how we do it, I want to show you a little bit about what we are going from and what we are going to, just to sort of set the stage, give a bit of context around what we're really transferring here. So to do that, I'm going to go into the admin center inside Google and also log on as the user that I want to see the shared drives inside Google, just so you can see what data is in there. See there, admin.google.com, and you can see it's just a normal Google Workspace admin console here, and you can see what's going on. Now, what I want to show you in here, if we have a look at the apps and Google Workspace, this is where we manage the shared drives. And if we go all the way down here into drives and docs, and then it's a little bit deep, a little bit hidden. I thought it should be more on the front screen, but it's actually in here, manage shared drives. And you can see we've only got one shared drive. It's got about 5.5 gig of data in there, and it's just called client data. And you can see here, we can obviously do the things like manage members and the like, but that's the data we want to pull out, this one here. So if I go across and go into Drive as that user, so let's go in there. There's only one user on this particular tenant, but you can see what I'm doing here. If we look at shared drives, you see there's our client data, there's our shared drive. And if we go into that, you can see there's some information. You can see active clients, offerings. Just it's dummy test data, to be honest with you, but it does serve the purpose of showing you that it is a live shared drive inside a Google Workspace account. And that is what we want to pull out and get across onto our M365 tenant and place that exact data inside a SharePoint site. So what I'll do on this side on the M365 is you can see here's our active sites inside SharePoint. I'm going to create a brand new site for this to go into, and we'll just give it it's a team site, standard team, nothing particularly special. I'm just going to use that, and we'll just call it Google Client Data. So you can see by putting that in, it's given us our details, and we'll put an owner in there. Let's make the owner. We'll make it that admin account that we're using, the Cozy Mouse admin account. And next, we'll make it. It will make it private, it's fine, and we will give it a slightly different time zone so we can keep the local times the same. And I'm going to add some members in while that's creating it. I'm going to use our test user we had called Bob Green. See here, that's the workstation we'll look at the end to make sure he does have access to it. But once we have that in there, looks like we've finished. That's pretty quick. It's just a very basic site, as you can see. But you can see there is our site, Google Client Data. And if we go in there, you'll find that under Documents, there is obviously nothing in there. It's a brand new site. But that's really the space we want to set up on the M365 side for SharePoint. That is where we're going to be migrating this data into. So to get that done, there's obviously a few things we need to do on the Google side for the API, so we can get access to the data through the Migration Wiz, the SaaS client that we're going to be using for that. So the first thing we're going to do is actually set up a project inside the Google Cloud Platform. And we're going to put the API references in there. Now, how we do that is we just start up a new tab here. And we go to this URL, which is console.cloud.google.com. And that'll take us into the back end, obviously the cloud console for G Suite. Now, I'm already logged in, as you saw, as that one user who has the admin rights to do this. And you can see here for that rocksmashers.com. It's currently looking at a project which we've used previously. So what I'm going to do here is just click in here, and we're going to, you can see here's our older projects that we've been working on. I'm going to put a new project in, and we'll call this one, let's just call it Shared Data Move. See a very inventive name there, as you can see, but that'll serve the purpose there. We just create that, and once that's done, we'll be able to flick over into that particular project and enable those APIs and resources that it needs. There we are. So we say select project. And we are now in there. So our first step on this project is we go to APIs and services here. Once that comes up, you can see all the different services that can be enabled. And we're going to go to library. And there's two that we want to enable in here. One of them is the Google Drive API, and then we need the admin SDK. So if we go in here and just type in Google Drive, it should come up. There we go. Google Drive API, click on that, and we need to enable it like that. That will do that job for us. It will just pop back to the front screen when that's done. There we go. So now we go back to library again, and I'm going to put in admin SDK. Go, that's the one. And we'll enable that one as well. That should, once again, drop us back to that front screen, and we'll be able to see what is enabled there. Good. So the next stage is we need to give it a service account that we will then tell Migration Wiz to use to connect to that project and connector and be able to use those APIs in connection. So how we do that is, once again, you can see up here on the menu, we need to go into the navigation of that, and we need to go into the IAM and admin. Different screen, there we go, and we click on service accounts down here on the left hand side. And here we click create service account, and we'll give that a name. And we might just call that one Migration Wiz Shared Data, and create and continue. We don't have to put a description in if we don't want to, but in the role there we will tell it is an owner, and continue there. We don't need to add anything in there. Those are optional. We don't need to do that. We just hit done. And what that'll do is it will give us the ability now to download the JSON file that we need to use it to connect with. So here we click on the little actions item here, and we do manage keys. And we say add a key, create a new one, and we're creating a JSON key, which we'll then do. And that will drop into our downloads automatically, and you can see that's what's happened there. So close that. So we're going to need that one later inside the Migration Wiz console. So now we'll jump back into the main screen for service accounts. It shows all the service accounts. And what I need to do is just go across here to this OAuth2 client ID, and I'm just going to copy it to the clipboard because we're going to need that in a minute. And we'll jump over to the admin.google.com. And what we're interested in here is, just drop that away, we're interested in the security tab and the access and data control here and the API controls. And we're after domain-wide delegation down the bottom here. So we click on that. And you'll see there's a few that we've already done already, but we're going to create a new one here. So what we'll do is we say add new, and we just need to give it some scopes to put in. If we paste in the client ID, that was the one we've just obviously got from the service accounts. But now we need to put the OAuth scopes in. Now what I'm going to show you here is if I drag this article across that we're referring to, this is the help desk article showing us really what to do. And you can see it lists them here. Now what you'd normally be able to do is just cut and paste that into the console there. But what you do need to do in this particular article is we do need to actually run up Notepad and do it first. So I need to drop them into Notepad there and just tidy that up a little bit. I need to put a comma between each one. So, and I'll say this, I want to make it easier for you if you do that. Then just grab the whole thing and then drop that in here, and you'll see that it will then work. If I say authorize there, you can see now it's added them in correctly. So here we go, shared data, and it's got those two, and it's got 4 more. As long as you've got 4 that are showing, that's obviously what you need. If I say view details, you can see what it's added in. So that's just a little trick for you to get those in nice and easy without having to cut and paste each individual line. Just put the comma between them, drop them all into one space, and they all go in nice and correctly there. So that's everything done on the Google side. Now we've got a bit to do on the M365 side on the target tenant. The first thing we need to do there is give the Migration Wiz console the rights to be able to get into your SharePoint site and have full control over SharePoint so it can drop the data in. Now the way we do that is, once again, coming back to that article I'm talking about, you can see pasted in here. Here's the item here talking about SharePoint full control. And if we do, obviously we're logged on as the user there. So I'm going to grab that, as you see, copy the link address, and I'm going to put that link address up into this session, because that's obviously where we are in terms of what we've got logged on. You can see it's then looking at the cozy mouse, which I'll do, and there we go. So that's really saying it wants to give the SharePoint full control to this here, which we will then just say accept, and of course that'll jump back to our main BitTitan screen once that is done. Now, if you're interested in what that's actually done on the M365 backend, just have a look at your identity here, the Azure ID or the Entra ID is now called, and have a look under applications, have a look at enterprise applications. And what you'll find is, if we sort it based on the date created, so at the top there, you can see there it is there. So that is the application ID that it's created and the application associated with it. So if you want to get rid of that anytime, once you're done with the migration, just go to properties and you can hit delete and get rid of it that way. But that's just so you know where it is and what it's done. We'll just come back to home there. In fact, we'll just close that one out and carry on with the setup. Now, next function is we do need to have inside the target tenant, we do need to have, if we look at teams and groups, we need to have a security group. Now, I've already got one set up in here, but you see there's a migration with security group formatted exactly like that. And inside that has to have the member, which is that migration with at cozymouse.com. That's the service account, obviously, that's set up as well as with the admin rights too. So this is quite an important step. You must have a security group called Migration Wiz, and your service account has to be a member of that group as well. So don't forget to do that. So let's now go into the Migration Wiz console, and we're going to set up the project and start the migration process. So we'll go into it here. As you can see here, I'm actually already signed in. So I'm signed in on this tab here, and we will be going to the Create Project. Now, the project type we're going to create today is going to be a document project. So we'll click on that one. And we're going to give it some base details. So the project name and the customer we're doing this for. We're going to give it the Google Shared Data as a project name, and just the customer we've already got set up in there called Cozy Mouse. So we'll just say next steps. Now, the source settings. This is a new endpoint I'm going to create. See here, and I'm going to create it with a name. Just call it Google Workspace, and the endpoint type here is going to be Google Shared Drives. So now it's going to ask us for that JSON file. That's the file that we had all downloaded automatically off of that service account tab, as you can see when we set up that service account. So I'm just going to do the select file and find that and drop it into this box here, which I've done there. And let's just go down a little bit here. And the admin user account is obviously a super admin on the Google tenant. So I'll put that into that and hit add. So that's what we need for the source side. Let's go to the next step there, and we're going to create the endpoint for the destination. Now, this is the M365 side now. So we'll say new, and we'll give that one a name as well. With that Cozy Mouse M365, and that one will be a SharePoint Online. Now, it's after the URL for the SharePoint Online. Now, this is the standard SharePoint.com address that you would access the data through. This is not the admin address. It's just the normal one you'd use to connect to the site if you were a user or just accessing it normally. So this one is going to be HTTPS, and you can see here, cozymouse.sharepoint.com. I'll scroll down a bit here because we're going to put the username and password. This is that Migration with service account that we've had created earlier. It's the one we added into that Migration with security group as well. So that is where this account goes. So with that in, we are going to use just the standard Microsoft provided Azure storage. It's not a lot of data we're moving. If you want to create your own custom Azure storage, you can. There's help desk articles in the BitTitan site on how to do that. But we're going to use the Microsoft provided storage for this process. And we'll just hit add. That will bring that in, as you can see. No, thank you for that. Good. And hit save and go to the summary, which will take us into this section. We'll say save project at this point, and away we are into the point where we can start adding the sites, the Google Shared Drives, and what sites we want to assign them to. Now, the easiest way to do that is to hit the auto discover items, which if we click on that, you'll find that we can start an auto discover. Now, I'll kick that off as I'm talking to you. But what it will do is it will look at the Google Shared Drives that it can see, and then bring those into the console. It's going to map them in with like a name for name basis, because it's not going to search on the M365 side to work out which one should go where. That's up to you to decide where things are going to be mapped to. But what it will do is it will go and search for things and bring them in. Now, the important thing here is that if this all works correctly, it means that your APIs and your connections are obviously configured nicely, because without that being configured nicely, it's not going to see any data anyway. So this is definitely a good step to check things out. So I'll come back in a couple of minutes once this is done, and we'll see what it has found. Right, so that's completed, and we'll say import items. It's found one item. We do have one shared drive, so that's a good sign. We'll say import items and see what it's found. And looks like that. It has found that shared drive called client data. Now, it's looking to put it in a place called client data itself. Obviously, that's not correct. We need to tell it where we want to put it. So how we go about doing that is we go back to the SharePoint site, as you can see here. And what we do is we have a look at this guy. So you can see here, sites, Google Client Data. That's obviously the site it wants to go into. And we have to be quite specific about where we want to put it. So I'm going to go to Documents here. And it is actually this document space that I want things to go into. So what I'm interested here is this portion here. So where it says Sites across to Shared Documents. So I'm going to grab that. Now, once I've got that in the clipboard, I'm going to go across and edit this line. And down on the SharePoint Online here, that is where I'm going to paste that in. So you can see that's what it's done. And we'll say Save Items in there. You can see if I make that a little bit bigger. Let's drag it down a bit. You'll be able to see that that is the full path where we want that data to end up going. Now, before I jump in and do the normal verify credentials and start a migration off, I want to show you a little bit about the advanced options here. There's some interesting things you can put in. One of them that is a recommended item is, if we put a plus here, is going to be the initialization timeout. And if we specify that at 8 hours, we found that that can be very, very helpful in terms of making sure you don't have any timeout issues on the Google Shared side. Now, what I will show you is on the help desk article, talks about setting things up. There's a lot more. And if I just drag that in there, I just want to show you a few of these, because there are some options in here about renaming conflicting files, conflicting folders, and an interesting one here about shrinking the folder maximum length. And you can see before, you can see 200 will be the maximum length, can be tolerated before shrinking, and it will attempt to shrink that for you. A lot of problems we have when we do migrations of this type is the folder length and the whole file name, effectively, of what can be put into SharePoint Online. There's a 400 character limit on the SharePoint side, and often that can be overrun from the Google side. So this is a great option to try and handle some of that, and also things like invalid characters and what the replacement string should be, and any user mapping that you want to do as well. So these are good ones to consider. I'm not going to need to put any in for this one. It's quite a simple migration we're doing here as a demonstration, but this is definitely something you need to just consider, and let's have a look at. If you are running into any issues on your migration, this is certainly the place to be for that. So here then I'll just hit save on that. And what we want to do first of all is just hit the tick and run the verify credentials as we would normally do on a project, just to make sure that everything is good on both sides, that we've got all our rights set up, our accounts are all good, we've got access to the data on both sides, and really how things are going to be working. So we'll submit that and we'll come back in a couple of minutes with that response. All right, so refreshing that, we can see that we've completed verification, which is a great sign. So now we're going to kick off. We're going to the tick box here, and we will say, I'm not going to do a pre-stage or a trial or anything. We're going to go straight to full migration on this one. Let me show you what we'd do if we did a pre-stage. Do this one here. You can see it would take step 1, you can see documents and permissions, and it looks at migrating items that are earlier than a specific date. So if we said, okay, everything from 30 days ago and backwards, and that might capture the bulk of the data that we want to move, and then we do the final cutover a little later on. So what that means is that we can pre-stage everything on the site first without affecting anybody's access. We just pre-stage it up there. And then, of course, we run the cutover process, which will be a much shorter migration if we did the full migration after a pre-stage. In this particular case, in the demonstration, I'm going to go straight to a full migration. It is only about 6 gig of information, so it should happen relatively quickly. And we don't need to pre-stage everything ahead of a full migration. So we just hit full migration there, and you can see step 1, documents and permissions. Step 2 we'd run afterwards, which is the shortcuts. But I'm just going to say, yep, that's certainly good to go, and we'll kick that off. Now you can see we've got a difference in the migration, the license type. I'm going to use the one here that talks about the shared document 50 gig. I've got those licenses already in my account, so I've already purchased those, so we're good to go with those. So you can see now it's actually lighting up that start migration button. So hitting that will kick that off, and we'll come back shortly and just see what the status is like on that one. A little bit later on, you can see here from the timing, we now have 5.56 gig migrated according to the console, which is exactly the same amount of data that we showed in the original shared drive on the Google side. So looks like we're good. We do have what it says here is 29 errors. Now I know what those are. It's going to be the DS store files, which are the old Mac files, which just happen to live in there, and obviously they can't work on there. So they will come through. Obviously, it's good to have a quick troll through those, make sure there's no other errors in there, but the DS store ones I would expect. So that's not really an issue there. But what we'll do is click on the main migration here. Now you can see what it's done, all the different directories and folders that it's done. You can see everything looks good from there. And obviously down here as well, there's our little migration errors we're talking about, but obviously okay. So what I want to do is just have a look at the client side. Let's have a look at what the user that we assigned, the Bob Green, the user, on his workstation. What can he see now? Can he see that data effectively, and what does it look like? So this is his machine, and I've actually already logged him into SharePoint site here just to make it a bit quicker. You can see there's our site, Google client data, and that's what he sees. That's the SharePoint site which we set up. And if we look at documents there, I'm expecting some data in there, and look, there we go. That is all good. And if we just troll through those a little bit, we can see that there's definitely some data in backgrounds. Let's have a look at desktop, and we'll see some data here, obviously, on one of these files, just to make sure we do have some fidelity in there. Yep, and we got a picture, which is what I would expect. So really, from what I can see there, is our migration has been effective. There's our data. It's retained the time and date of the original files inside the Google Drive. So you see Thursday last week. And if we look at this data as well, let's just go back into some of these again and look at the date of the files. It does put those correctly as well, which is obviously good. We don't want everything having today's date, just because that's the date we migrated it. So that is certainly good to see. So thank you very much for watching. I do hope that was helpful in showing you how to move from Google Shared Drive across into M365, into SharePoint Online, into a client library, a site like this. And we'll look out for you on the next one. Thanks again.